Well, welcome to another exciting episode of Extraordinary Ordinary Women. And I'm Margherita. And I am so excited to be able to share with you stories of ordinary women, women in our community, perhaps even your next door neighbor, women who have had a dream or an idea and followed it through to fruition. Their stories will encourage you, uplift you, and hopefully inspire the seeds of greatness within your heart. For it's through sharing that we come to realize that we are not Robinson Crusoe all alone on our own little island, but that there is, particularly now with social media, this network of truly amazing women who willingly stretch out their hand with encouragement. Now, having found this for myself when my life was turned upside down, it is my gift to those women to be able to pay forward the gift of encouragement to others. So, without further ado, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing a very special guest, Marianne Wallace, also known as Marianne Equislave on her Facebook page. And at first, it took me a while to work this one out. And then the penny dropped, and I realized the postscript is so apt. I got my words tumbled around. Because I must say, when you have horses, or in Marianne's case, donkeys in your life, you are a slave to their needs. So Marianne has a deep love for donkeys and is actively involved in the donkey community through her work with the Donkey Society of Western Australia, where she helps care for, rehome, and advocate for these incredibly gentle animals. So what makes Marianne's work so heartwarming is the way she brings that love out into the community, taking her donkey into nursing homes, where something truly magical happens. Now, donkeys are known for their calm, intuitive nature and their ability to connect with people. In aged care settings where loneliness can quietly affect so many, these visits bring joy, comfort, and a sense of connection that animals provide. Residents light up, conversations flow, and for a moment, there's a return to something simple, familiar, and ever so deeply human. Marianne is part of a growing movement showing just how powerful animal connection can be as therapy, not just with horses and dogs and cats, but with these beautiful, often underestimated animals, the donkey. So I'm so excited for you to hear her story and the impact she's making. Marianne, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Marianne, before we dive into your story, would you share with us, please, where you're tuning in from today?
From Perth, Rolling Stone Hills. Very
West.
cold at the moment.
Oh, likewise here. So, Perth, Western Australia, because there are a couple of
Yeah.
Perths. Yes.
Right, okay, yeah, Western Australia. Long way away from you.
Yeah, it's the other side of the continent, actually. Yeah. So, Marianne, can you share a bit about your background, how you came to become involved with donkeys?
Well, as you know, I've had love of horses all my life and bought my first one at 18. So I was a horse person first. And then in about 2017, I was at a clinic with my horse, and there was a woman there with two riding donkeys, her and her daughter. And I really wasn't interested, but I became quite friendly with them. So I thought I'd be very polite and go and, look at their donkeys on the last day. And, I had a look and thought they were a bit odd looking. And then she said, "Oh, why don't you go in and give them a cuddle?" And I thought, no, I'm really not interested, but, I've got to be respectful here. So I went in and I put my arms around one of them, put my face in between his ears, And then in that moment, it's like the whole world just suddenly turned upside down. And I felt this whole shift, and this weird thing came over me. And I looked up at the woman there, and she was just smiling at me like she knew something. And we're now best friends all these years later. But I just knew, and I told everyone right then and there that I'm getting a donkey. And they all just went, yeah, 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 and she put me in contact with someone who lived nearby who gave me lots of advice. It turned out my vet and farrier were also donkey vet and farrier, so I had no escape.
Ah,
And I was trying to, stop myself, like you just, it's just a fad, just no. And then this little guy came up on Facebook up in Morawa, which from Perth, I don't know, it's about 4 or 5 hours drive. It's a long way.
yes.
And so I asked this particular woman about it, and she said, "Oh, yeah, we'll go next week and pick him up." And I'm like, "Whoa, no, a bit quick." So little did I know that the Women in the Donkey Society travel the state. So yeah, a week later, they were in the donkey bus, which is a van and trailer attached, heading up on a road trip up to Morawa, and brought Legacy home. He was 2.5 at that stage.
Now, what I find fascinating with stories like this is that really once that moment of connection with your face, your head in between the ears, the universe has connected and really it just opens up the doorway. Like your vet and farrier had never ever mentioned donkeys before, had they? Um,
No.
and this woman has now become a major part of your donkey life. It's just incredible. The more I interview people and hear their stories, the more the universe aligns once you've got it within yourself. And wow, what a beautiful, beautiful story. So before we move on, why legacy? Why the name legacy?
Well, so the person who bred him is a woman up in Northam who breeds lots of different animals. And with her donkeys, she names them like a different letter of the alphabet every year. And 2015 was L, and he was born on Anzac Day, like midnight going into Anzac Day. So he's an
Wow.
Anzac donkey.
Wow, what a beautiful connection there with that name. That's awesome. So, Marianne, life, whatever we're doing, life tends to serve us its fair share and more sometimes of challenges. What have been some of the hardest parts of navigating the reality of owning a donkey and doing all that you do with him?
Just lack of lack of good information. There's all sorts out there, but
Yeah.
in other countries, like so in New Zealand, in the US, in the UK, donkeys are big. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of knowledge. People are doing a lot with them. Even over east, they're doing a lot. But in WA, it's gone pretty quiet. So, and the women who I look to for information are now in their 80s and not able anymore. So, and there's nobody that really, everyone does everything their own way. They've all nutted it all out, but there's no trainer that you can go to and learn from. There's no one that can come, they can help with the basics, but if you want to do more or you're having a problem, it can be really hard. Plenty of willing helpers, but there's no, you can't go to a clinic with so and so, and learn. And of course, donkeys are completely different to horses in how they learn. They probably more similar to a dog, but they learn, like you teach them something, you can only in a session repeat it maybe 2 to 3 times, and then they won't do it. They say, "I've showed you, I know it. I do not need to repeat that," you
Well,
know, and that's it.
that's it.
So when they pick something up, they're really super solid in it. that's it. They know it. Like you can train your donkey to cart and then not put it in a cart for 5 or 6 years and take it out and go down the road and they're perfectly fine. You don't have to go over it like you might with a horse. They just pick up where they left off. But they are thinkers, so they will really think through situations. And if they think you're being unreasonable or they don't, if you want to go left on a track and they want to go right, then be prepared to stand and wait while they decide, whether they're going to give in and go your way or not, because they don't just go along with things like a horse.
Right. Now that's interesting because, in the files of my mind, I can remember movies, I guess, as a child growing up, mules and donkeys doing exactly that. That was so very different to horses. Now, you mentioned a cart there. I have seen on your Facebook page that you actually have legacy. You've made that transition or did that learning experience with him. Can you elaborate? How did you? I
Oh, okay.
yes.
Yeah. So it was pretty straightforward, really. First of all, just got him used to the harness and then started long reining him, which again is different with a horse. You just put I actually attached the reins to his halter. Someone led him and just turned his head left and right and came up with whatever command. And in no time at all, he knew that that word meant left and that word meant right and that word meant stop. And then just got him used, like desensitized him to a lot of noise, tied him alongside another donkey that was in cart because they learn through observation and modeling. So seeing another donkey in cart, he will learn what that is and what to do. So tied him up and then, walked him along with the cart sort of alongside him. And then, yeah, one day just popped him in and off we went.
So, like with when I harness my horse up and go out in the sulky, she wears blinkers or winkers. Do donkeys have the same thing?
Some people do, but over here we don't bother. They're
Ah,
fine.
right.
I think they're more comfortable without it. So,
Yes, yes. So then what led you along the path of taking him to the nursing home?
well, that was our dear Auntie Daryl. Went to visit her one day and, was telling her about him and she made a comment of, oh, well, bring him in to see me. And I went, oh, yeah, yeah, And I went off and a few months later, Mum rang and said she'd been to visit and Auntie Daryl had been asking where Legacy was. She was actually calls him Lazarus. So she was asking where he was. And I felt a bit bad, and I didn't know then that they went into nursing homes. So I rang someone and they said, oh, yeah, we'll help you. So I rang the OT and they were completely like it was a normal thing for them. So we
Wow,
went, took him in that first time, but the person that took me took her donkey as well as a mentor. So
right.
the two of them went together. And then I just went back periodically to see Auntie Daryl with him. And then, a couple of other nursing homes contacted, like one wanted us to do go to their Christmas carols. And so a few you sort of just builds from there.
I find it very, very interesting because I saw an article years ago of a horse doing the same thing, and I thought, wow, that would be really amazing to be able to do. It amazed me because often when you take horses out in public situations, they have to have poo bags to collect them.
Yeah.
So, is there what? How do you get around that?
Well, they don't go to the toilet inside, and that's that. Very rare for a donkey that would toilet. Well, they don't generally. They don't tend to like to urinate away from their home. So he would hang on to his wee until he got home, and poo he would do in the horse float, but they just never ever do it. And if they did, like there is the odd one that will, we don't wouldn't take them, but 99.9% of donkeys will not go to the toilet. Um, in anywhere other than where they choose to, because normally in the wild they do their poos all in one place because that's, a territory thing.
Right.
So therefore they're not inclined, like a horse will walk along and just go.
Yes.
Donkeys are less inclined to do that. And yeah, it's just not their thing.
Wow, that's really very interesting. I would have a bladder like that.
I know, yes.
Yeah, maybe. Oh dear. Well, Marianne, from the depths of that experience, what have been the rewards, the insights, the strengths, and new perspectives perhaps that have come?
Um, Probably the one of the really lovely things is the reactions of people, and you see it most in the elderly men, particularly European men, because even today in France and Italy, they're still using donkeys, and they'll talk about it'll bring out stories, and they'll talk about riding up into the mountains with the sheep with their father on donkeys and people telling stories of where they grew up. And there you do get one of the workers at the nursing home, the first time she was from Africa originally, and she was giggling and laughing, and she was so nervous, and she didn't want to touch him, and eventually she touched him with a finger. And what it was when she grew up, in Africa, they were working donkeys, but they weren't nice, cuddly donkeys. They were, inclined to bite and things. So she
Oh,
didn't have,
yes.
but yeah, it's the stories that come out. We were there once, and they asked, because you'll sometimes go room to room, and they asked me to take him into this room where there's this Russian woman, and we got to the door, and she screamed and screamed and screamed, and he went over and she grabbed his face, and she was screaming and kissing him all over his face, and laughing, and who knows what she was saying. I've no idea, but he just stood there, and she just kissed him and screamed, and obviously so excited, and some sort of memory, but not able to speak English to tell us what was going on. Um, yeah, things like that. When we did our first carols by candlelight at the nursing home, he hadn't actually been indoors at that stage, and they asked him to go and visit a man who had had a fall, but I think he was actually dying, and that was his first time at a bedside, and he sort of hung his head, and the man was just able to lift his hand and touch his face, and yeah.
Wow, that is so incredible. And not all animals have that intuition. They are special within their own breeds. It's like people have special gifts, and so do the animals have special gifts to be able to do that. Wow, that is incredible. And I can so relate to the joy of sharing your experience and listening to the stories. Because when I was tootling around the countryside with my two draft horses in the gypsy wagon, people would stop and chat and stories would come out. And it was
Mm.
just beautiful. This sharing and yes, it was really lovely. There were so many gorgeous connective moments with my horses and wagon that I can sincerely appreciate your connective moments with Legacy in the nursing homes. Well, finally, sorry, I would like to go back to the harness. Do you have it like a little sulky and you sit in the sulky and
Yeah, yeah. So it's just a small two-wheel donkey cart.
right?
So, yeah. Um, and it's just got the long shafts, and yeah, pop him in that and off we go. Unfortunately, here is very, very hilly, so we're a bit limited. And because I don't drive, I can't just sort of take him out with the cart, but we do what we can, and he seems to enjoy it. So,
And do
yeah,
you
it's
get
nice.
out of a walk or is that your one pace with a donkey?
Um, well,
Because
he
you don't
doesn't
often see
like.
them trotting.
No, no. When I um, first got him, I was able to go down to the person's farm down at Quindanning and drive one of her big donkeys, and we did a bit of trotting there. But trying to get Legacy to trot when he doesn't want to is just completely impossible. So,
You
yeah,
walk. And
you
you
walk.
you enjoy the slowness of life.
That's right. You enjoy the slow pace of life. That's right.
Absolutely. So finally, what words of wisdom have emerged from your journey with donkeys that you would want to share?
So we used to go in and do a mental health group with him, and what I used to talk to people about is how donkeys are really thinkers, and when they're in a difficult situation, they don't just react on emotion or instinct like a horse. They
Yes.
stop and stand and they let the everything go on around them and they just observe. And when they've worked out the best course of action, then they will act. But they just stand and they're quite mindful animals. And so they'll just let everything, and you'll see my horse galloping around with his ears up and his tail up.
Yes.
And Legacy would just be watching him and watching, and then he just turns around and walks off as if to say, no, I don't see there's a problem there. So yeah, I'd say I say to people, be like the donkey, just stand, weigh everything up and make your decision, don't just be reactive and
Yes, and there's a saying, isn't there? We need to learn to respond and not react, which is
yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
you're
that's
describing with legacy and how the donkeys process, which is very, very interesting, actually. I could become a donkey person quite easily.
yes, yes, they're a prey animal, but at the same time, they'll weigh up what the threat might be. They'll use sort of camouflage. They freeze, so freeze is their first response, not like a horse that flies.
Yes.
So they'll actually. That's why people think they're stubborn, but it's not. It's because if they're uncertain, they'll just freeze. I mean, they still do shy, believe me, but generally freeze and then they will quite often fight, which is why, they're so often used, for stock protection and which is
Oh,
a touchy subject with different people, but they
yes.
are used a lot. And I was just today on the internet, saw a picture of what they can do when a wild dog gets in with cattle and the donkeys there. And
Well, that actually rings a little bell too, because until you said it, I'd actually forgotten that I had read about that or sometime in the past there. Yeah. Amazing,
yeah,
amazing creatures.
and
Marianne,
it's
sorry.
I was going to say it's why I've got to be very careful when I'm out walking him, just because if he sees a dog, he locks onto it, and he would love nothing better than he's very not dog friendly, so I have to be very careful of that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing such an interesting and inspiring story, and for the beautiful and somewhat unique way you are bringing comfort, joy, and connection to the lives of others, to the lives of elderly people who often find this time of life very quiet and lonely. In closing, I thank my listeners, my viewers, for joining us today. And if you enjoy hearing the stories of ordinary women doing extraordinary things, I invite you to subscribe and join us for future conversations. So let's reach 90 subscribers this month as we continue sharing these uplifting stories. We're already on our way. And I look forward to sharing another story of an extraordinary, ordinary woman with you all. Marianne, thank you. Thank you.
No worries, my pleasure. Good to speak to you.
Likewise. With heart, Margherita.